Hello and welcome to Shannon Gardens. Thank you guys so much for joining me. So today I thought that we would take a look at my containers that I have planted around and just kind of check out the status of the flowers and plants that I have planted in there, see what's working and what's not, particularly in the high temperatures that we have had in the last handful of weeks. So let's go ahead and walk around and take a look. So I thought that we would begin in the hanging baskets right behind me. I've got this beautiful Diplodenia that has been completely unbothered by the heat and humidity this summer. It has been blooming all summer long and is quite healthy and looks really, really nice, combined with this beautiful chartreuse creeping jenny. And I love the creeping jenny so much. I love the coloration and the leaves and the way it drapes over the containers. And as you guys will find, I use this a lot in my containers. It is a perennial in zones 4 through 9. So the nice thing about it is that it will come back next year as well. And I should not have to replace those. So moving on to the next container, I have my garden phlox here that I planted this year, and it has just been blooming all summer. And then beneath that, I have the pentas, which have filled in quite nicely as well. I'll take you guys around here. And these look very, very nice. Again, these have bloomed all summer long. And then beneath the pentas, I have my creeping jenny. Now, I did want to show you guys that I actually have had a couple of sunflowers pop up that I did not plant in this planter. But you'll see here, I've got this one about to bloom and I've got this one beneath it. And I've just left them. I thought that they were really, really pretty and I've just left them in the container. So I wanted to show you guys this plant, which I believe is Coleus. I remember that it wasn't marked when I bought it, but I'm pretty sure this is Coleus. And I have trimmed this back several times, but it has turned into quite a green monster in this corner. So while I think it's very pretty and it is a profuse grower, this is not something that I would plant again in this spot next year, just because it has gotten so big and I've had to trim it so much. And you can see that I have some Calibrachoa underneath here, which I'm surprised is even surviving because it's so dwarfed by this Coleus, but this is actually doing quite well as well. You just can't really see it because this other plant is so big and is hiding it from view. So this is something, again, that I would probably plant again, but maybe not in this location because I was not aware that it would do so well in this little space. Now in these boxes, which are actually shallow compared to the rest of the containers that I have, I planted the Pentas and Lantana, knowing that these could handle even drier conditions better. And as you can see, the Pentas are still blooming and look very, very nice and healthy. No burning of the leaves here. And then the Lantana is doing very nicely as well. Again, no burning of the leaves. And I have seen the hummingbirds come up to these plants several times every day. So this is very nice to have by the window so that I can look out and see those hummingbirds right outside. Here we have another container. And as you can see, this one has different colors of zinnias as well as some portulaca here. Now I did have celosia planted as well. However, I did not like the look of it and actually took it out. You can see the little hole there in the middle because I just recently took that out. It was still blooming. It just looked leggy and I didn't like the look. So I thought I would go ahead and remove it. But as you can see, these have filled in this container and look very, very nice. Some of the zinnias have gotten a bit leggy, but all in all, they have a lot of new blooms coming in here, new buds. So this will continue blooming for quite some time as well. Now here I have my planter that has garden phlox that I divided from my main perennial garden and added to this container years ago. So I've got that here and it is still blooming as well. And then I've got my marigolds here and they are doing quite nicely and continuing to bloom. And I just got done actually deadheading these. I've got portulaca down below, which is filled in and is continuing to bloom and has little buds on it. And then zinnias as well. Now these have gotten particularly leggy over here on the side, but I've just left them because they have so many buds, so they're continuing to bloom. Now I did have some celosia planted here, and this was a bigger part that I had it planted than in my other container. So I actually removed it because it was so leggy and the blooms were just flopping over, and I didn't like the look of it anymore. And I got this speedwell, which is a perennial. So I popped it in here for now, and then in the fall I will actually transplant that to my perennial garden. This is a hummingbird attractant, and it also is deer resistant. So sounds great for my perennial garden, and I'll just be moving that once the weather gets a little cooler. One thing I did want to point out to you guys, if you have portulaca planted, is you may notice that it will drop seeds and start little plants. So keep your eyes out for these little plants, and you'll be able to recognize it by the leaves and also by the feel of them. And I actually pull these up with their roots, and I will put them in their own pot and start new plants. So that's just a little thing to keep an eye out for. I've got them all under the containers that have portulaca planted. So I just keep my eye out, make sure not to mistake these for weeds, and we'll put them in their own pot and start new portulaca plants from that as well. Now I have another container that has my Diplodenia, and you can see this is very full. It is very happy in this container. I've got the Diplodenia here, and then I've got my Vinca, which has done very, very well in this container. And this is pretty much an all-day sun. And then my portulaca here, and this is really filled in. Probably out of all the portulaca I have, this one has definitely filled in the most. And just look at that draping over the container. I think it looks really, really nice and has definitely thrived in these hot temperatures. I have this container as well that has Rulia planted in it, and then portulaca below. And as you can see, that portulaca again has just filled in so nicely. And this Rulia, let me show you up close. This is very, very attractive to hummingbirds, and this has continued to bloom all summer as well. And into August, it's continuing to put out new blooms. Now this is another container that has my Plumbago, and just look at how much it has filled in and is beautiful and is regularly visited by the butterflies. So this is one that I will absolutely be repeating next year. I wanted to include a video of the petunias that I planted at the beginning of the season, and they look so pretty here, but for some reason, I really struggle when I've planted these in the past to get them to last through the summer season and continue to bloom. And I just think that I am not going to include petunias on my list in the future as plants to include in my containers because of my lack of success with them in the past. And then last but certainly not least are my containers that I have more in part shade. They get very late afternoon sun, and this is the first year that I've planted these back here, or that I've had containers back here and planted them, and they have done so well. As you can see, the flowers have filled in so nicely. Now here toward the front where I have more sun is where I did put my pentas. I have some tradescantia here that was gifted to me, so I've actually tucked it into a few different pots along the way here. I also have some plumbago, which is doing very nicely, and I have to say that these plants up front actually had to make a bit of a comeback because they did get eaten early on by some deer. However, they did not eat all the plants, so these came back quite nicely and filled in. And then I have the impatiens in containers behind, and I'll just show you guys. It wraps around the tree here, and look at these colors and how wonderfully they have filled in. I just think it adds such a cute little spot by the hammock, and I am very pleased with this. This is something that I will absolutely be planting again next year. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I really enjoyed walking around and looking at the containers and seeing what plants have worked out and what plants I probably will avoid next year when planting my containers. And I have to say that as much as I hate to avoid it, I think the wave petunias are going to be out. I just can never seem to get them to look nice the entire summer. And I think the celosia, because I end up not liking it at the end of summer. I like it when it's nice and tidy at the beginning of summer, but then as we get toward the end, it just looks overgrown and kind of flops over, and I don't like the look of it. So I think those are two that I am going to avoid next year, but then I'm going to keep with my tried and trues like my pentas, my creeping jennies, portulaca, diplodenia, and then as well as those impatiens, because I just think that those look so good. So I'll definitely be doing those and the plumbago as well. So those are the ones that I feel very strongly that I will stick with. And then I'm sure I'm going to add some other ones in there as well. I'd love to hear what you guys have had success with. If you could let me know in the comments the plants that you've had success with, or the ones that you haven't had very much success with. I'd love to hear your opinions and what you guys have found work for you as well. All right, thank you guys so much again. Please make sure to like and subscribe. And until next time, happy gardening and goodbye.